he said to me, you know what I'm about to say, look, there's nothing we can do. I'm so sorry, but you won't be on the plane to Rio.
He's so dangerous. Freddy Krueger has nightmares about him.
Hello and welcome to the Rugby Hive. I'm Dallen, Stanford, and despite my South African accent, I was fortunate enough to play rugby for the United States on the Sevens World Series.
And I'm MacDowell, a former Canadian Sevens international. Back in my playing days, I went head-to-head against Dallen in the USA.
For several years, Robin has coached international sevens for various countries, including Canada and Mexico. He's massively passionate about growing the game across the Americas through his MacDowell rugby programs at all levels. I'm currently a commentator for World Rugby, most recently broadcasting the Rugby World Cup in Japan, as well as the amazing Sevens World Series.
More than a decade later, we are teaming up to bring you insights from legendary players and coaches from around the world.
All legends have a story. The Rugby Hive podcast is here to share it.
Welcome to the Hive.
Oh, it's more dangerous than climate change.
Hello and welcome to episode 7. This week we catch up with Australian legend Tiana Penitani. First met Tiana on the HSBC World Rugby 7 series. She was retired at the age of 22, which I couldn't believe, still can't believe. But you hear the full story on the pod in a little bit. We've traveled to stops like Singapore, Los Angeles, Dubai, and got her around Cape Town, my hometown, in the South African Sevens. And dual rugby international is really an impressive star on and off the field, don't you think, Mr. Robin?
Yeah, I was blown away by how much she's achieved at such a young age, and she's humble, she's professional, and to be honest, she's got a long way to go still. So it was such a pleasure having her on, and I hope she inspires all the youth out there after listening.
Yeah, and Robin, you're going to like this. So Verity, my wife, she's obsessed with imitating what she thinks is a Kiwi accent, but it's basically full-blown Australian, even though she won't admit it. So I finally got Tiana to voice note Verity in her regular accent. And V was like, wow, Tiana sounds really much like me. I go, exactly, you sound Australian. So the whole time, Verity was laughing, adamant in Australian accent, saying, I'm not Australian.
We need to get them on together and record it.
Exactly. So, pal, what's been happening with you in your world for the last week or so?
Yeah, just really busy back at it. So what I'm trying to do right now is support 2-3 Canadian prairie athletes, to get to the West Coast, to be able to study, train, and play, and have a wonderful experience off the field, of course, on Vancouver Island, but most importantly, getting them out of proper Canadian winter, so they can be in a place where they set up for success and then hopefully transition to the national team program once they graduate from high school. So I've been busy with parents and local champions to make that happen. And then got to enjoy, went up the river, the beautiful Cowichan River with some family over the weekend. And of course, my puppy Molly. So we were just swimming up and down the stream all day. What did you guys get up to?
Yeah, also up and down the streams. We just took a little road trip, about 2 hours up the coast to Rockport, Massachusetts, and got to meet up with some rugby friends. It was a long time. I haven't seen folks face to face in ages. And these guys were part of the Maccabee rugby side, which basically the Jewish Olympics. We went to Israel in 2013 to the Maccabee Games. And then with a couple of the other guys, we went to Chile in Santiago for the Pan American Maccabee Games. I was a player and coach on that second trip, so it's just great fun, reminiscing about the glory days and the gold medals and all that sort of good stuff, sinking a few cold ones. Yeah,
I saw the pictures. That's a beautiful part of the world. And man, I was jealous just seeing, obviously not on the field anymore, but good to catch up about the glory days.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you're gonna enjoy this one too. So one of them had a beautiful dog that was there, and he was running up and down the garden. And so I went out to pulled a couple of goose steps, a couple of side steps, but the grass was so slippery, I wiped out. And at the same time, when everybody obviously turned from the lawn to see what I was doing, so I just bounced off the ground, pretend nothing happened, but still I've been getting a couple of shreds via text. But anyway, speaking of shreds, coming up this week, very exciting. Rugby Town Sevens rewatch is happening August 21st, 22nd, and 23, and it's on rugbytownsevens.com. We're re-showing all 62 matches from last year's tournament, which featured 5 of the US Armed Forces sides and 15 additional international teams going for the $10,000. We recorded a bunch of fun interviews, one of which was with you, of course, Robin. So we're going to look forward to re-showing that this weekend and having a laugh with some of your great skills.
Well, of all the tries I scored, not that many, for that one to get caught up after getting thrown onto the field, it's now immortalized because of you. But yeah, really looking forward to reviewing that wonderful event. And for me, it was the first time I'd ever partaked in the Rugby Town Sevens. I was really blown away by the on and off field treatment. It was the closest thing to the World Series I've ever been to. And for these young up and coming, North American athletes specifically, to go against some of the best World Series players in the world, including the great Osea Kalinisau, gold medal winning captain, just incredible. And with Ben Gollings back in Australia and his young boys are over there now. They've been playing American football in Las Vegas, so now they're back in Australia, and Dad's got them playing rugby. I've been begging him to go Facebook Live, just anything to watch live sports. So I'm sure the viewers out there will be sinking their teeth in.
And you always mention the mullet man. You were with him recently, showing a couple of moves. Again, what a great story. 18 years young, playing the Rugby Town Sevens against Osea, against other international Sevens World Series current stars and former stars, and tearing it up as well. Yeah,
I love the mullet man, and he just possesses raw power. I first met him at a Canada trial, basically next generation's trial. And he was at the time, I think 16 years old. Nobody really heard of him. We flew him to Kingston, Ontario, and he didn't really have a spot in the youth Olympic team. And he tore up just like he did the Rugby Town Sevens. He tore it up. And he was only about half mullet back then. So now that he's almost back to full mullet strength this past week, and him and I talked this week, and I said, if you let it grow out, Dallen's definitely going to give you a pitch to get that sponsor. So we need like conditioner company to back him.
Oh, it's coming soon. I've already had a few offers in the mail, so we'll see what else comes in this week after he gets another mention. Any shout outs and thank yous on your side, my friend?
Yeah, actually lots of thank yous this week. First of all, the Prince Rupert Seaman Rugby Club in beautiful Prince Rupert, BC. The owner of the Wheelhouse Brewing and also a rugby club member, James Witzke, and of course the youth director, Jason Scheer. They once a month, those gentlemen send me the latest brews from their local brew pub that I'm able to share with my family and friends here on Vancouver Island. So thank you for that. And then the Peary family and the Isherwood family, Peary family from the Abbotsford Rugby Club and Isherwood from obviously Okotoks, Alberta. They sent me a nice little care package for supporting their kids during COVID. So that was really sweet as well. So thank you to them. How about you on your side?
No, that's awesome to see. Firstly, I need to get some of those beverages sent to me as well. I'll get you my address a bit later. Robin, listen, I'm just very happy with the responses and thankful we've had 7 brilliant guests on our first 6 episodes. Guest number 2, Nolly Waterman, 6 years ago this week, she won the Rugby World Cup with England, and that's going on social media this week. So really cool to see that being posted. I want to give a shout out to the USA Women's Rugby World Cup fundraising event happening on September 18th. It's a virtual fundraiser. Captain's Knock is putting it on, the great Richard Sexton, and there'll be Eagles represented there, Christine Summer and Alicia Washington. So if people want to sign up for that, go to xvf.givesmart.com for that, which is great. A little shout out. So you got the beers in the mail. Coffee in the mail is coming soon from the company called Rugby Coffee. First shipment should be out soon, and that's one of the perks is being an ambassador here. And I just saw DTH van der Mabra as well as the Canadian ambassador to that side. So you're going to have to wrestle with that fleet-footed sensation for some Java there, Robin.
I think I'm out of luck. I'm going to have to drink a bunch of coffee before I try and catch him. But yeah, it's great. Actually, him and his family just transitioned back to Vancouver Island. So it's good to see he's out of quarantine now, and him and his family are out exploring Vancouver Island and getting some downtime. I'm sure it's pretty stressful to relocate during COVID. He's got 3 beautiful young kids. So welcome home, DTH.
Yeah, we'll have to get that man on the pod as well. Well, listen, we should give a couple thank yous as well. Thank you to our listeners. We were rated number 1 in Brazil this past week, which is fantastic. Top 5 in the US and Canada. So that's really just wonderful to see. So appreciate all the support out there. Make sure to keep giving us 5-star reviews. We're approaching almost 2,000 downloads in our first 6 weeks since launching. So make sure to follow us at Rugby Hive on Twitter and Facebook, at My Rugby Hive on Insta, and we hope you enjoy the next episode of the Rugby Hive. Today's guest is Australian legend Tiana Penitani. Penitani captained Australia in 2014 to a gold medal at the Youth Olympic Games in China. Shortly thereafter, she was a member of the first ever Australian side to win the HSBC World Rugby 7 Series in 2015-2016. In today's episode, we talk about representing her country at the Sevens World Cup while still in high school. We chat about her family, the tribute to her father, who she lost at a very young age, and we delve into being on the Olympic Games 2016 squad, but having to withdraw due to injury. Her country would go on to win gold in Rio. Penitani has some brilliant advice for us about coping with depression and the ego placing value on one's achievements. We talk about switching codes to represent Australia in league all before the age of 24. Is she foster then her fiance Aaron? What's it like being a broadcaster on the Sevens World Series? That and much, much more. Here is Australian legend Tiana Penitani. Joining us now, Australian Sevens sensation, 15s legend, hot stepper, rugby league, rugby union, it doesn't matter. Tiana, I want to say from a personal note, things I admire about you, your professionalism, your positive attitude, and you always have an infectious smile whenever we see you around the rugby world. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on the podcast, and thank you for the compliments. Likewise with you. It's awesome being able to meet people like yourself. We all come from different parts of the world, and to be connected by rugby is a pretty special thing.
Yeah, it really is. So how are you finding lockdown in Australia?
It's a pretty beautiful country to be stuck in lockdown. We're very lucky. But yeah, it's obviously been tough on everyone. We haven't been hit as hard here as some parts of the world, like from where you are, for example, in the US. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy, the whole adjustment to life and everything slowing down. I personally have enjoyed the slowdown because my life is pretty hectic, playing semi-professional and then traveling around the World Series and then having to work part-time at home and then study part-time as well. So this slowdown for me, it probably sounds a little bit selfish, but it's actually been quite nice to be able to just take the time to enjoy the smaller things that life has to offer. But yeah, I think I'm getting a little bit bored now at home, and there's only so much training by yourself that you can do to kind of keep you sane, but just taking it in my stride.
Well, again, you're focusing on the positives, which is great to see. It does allow a time for other things, which is brilliant, especially with you got so much on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really given me the opportunity to just really appreciate the little things like walking my dog every morning for an hour. I don't usually do that. My partner does. So I've been given that responsibility now, and it's really nice. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we're all on the road full time, and I was on the road almost every week for 6 months, just relocating back to the West Coast and working with the Canadian Women's National Team program, both in the Olympic Academy setup as well as doing talent ID, and then I do a bunch of other programs I'm involved in. And I was at the Vancouver Sevens, coaching the junior Canadian girls in the lead up, and then watching the men obviously over the weekend. And I cut out early, Tiana. Like I was like, you know what? I'm going to catch the early ferry back to Vancouver Island. I don't need to watch the bronze medal game. I'll watch in the car. I take off again in 2 days, and lo and behold, I haven't left in 2 months. So looking back, I'm kicking myself in the butt for not sticking around watching our bronze medal final there against South Africa. But yeah, thrilled to have you on here. And like you said, I mean, a core of our market here with the Rugby Hive is going to be a North American based, and telling the story of young superstars like yourself out of Australia to influence young North American future stars is such an inspiration. So we'd like to know about your story growing up and what sports you played as you were a young girl.
Yeah, well, thank you once again for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story. But for me, I guess I knew from a really young age that sport was going to be a big part of my life. I was about 4 or 5 years old when I started my first tiny tots on track and field. So that was one of the first sports that I played. And then from that point onwards, it was a range of sports. I think I totaled about 18 sports my whole life. So went from tennis, athletics, gymnastics, water polo, softball, swimming, netball, touch football, basketball, OzTag, rugby union, rugby league, the whole works. So I've had a really good taste of a lot of sport. And yeah, that's definitely been a passion of mine. And the reason why I got into rugby union was because I had a few friends that I knew through netball who played local club 15s, and they needed a few players to fill their team before the season started. And I had never played rugby union before, but my father had a rugby union background. So I was keen to jump on board and just learn a new code. I had no idea how to play rugby union. So that was really exciting for me to have the prospect of learning a new code. And then my sevens career took off. So yes, sport's been huge for me my whole life, I could say.
So you could say you were pretty lazy growing up. You really didn't get involved in stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Super lazy, super unmotivated.
Yeah, I want to read out a stat here. So you were 17 years old and 163 days. You became Australia's youngest ever athlete to play in a Rugby World Cup. That was during the Sevens World Cup in Russia in 2013. Can you tell us about that experience? I mean, you were in high school and there you were playing on arguably one of the biggest stages ever.
Yeah, it was really crazy for me personally because I was obviously navigating uncharted waters at that age. So I was in my last year of high school in year 12, and I just started playing sevens the year before, and it was through the first ever schoolgirls pathway that Australian Rugby Union had created. So I was really lucky, perfect age for that first year. And I had gone away and played in the national tournament, which is where they selected a handful of players to then train with the women's squad, the open women's sevens team. And I just turned 17 at that stage, and it was in the beginning of the year that I went to my first camp, and then there were a couple of big injuries that a couple of the main players had endured. So that left a few open spots before the IRB World 7 Series. I think that's what it was called back then. That was about to kick off. So the first tournament was an invitational in Hong Kong, and then the first official tournament for the women was China the following week. And they were in preparation camp, but there was a handful of us young girls who were just given the opportunity to train alongside these players. So we were in camp, and it was all high performance and super competitive. And then at the end of the camp, because of the injuries, I had one of the coaches pull me aside, or the head coach pull me aside, and pretty much hand me my opportunity and said, what are your thoughts on potentially making your debut next week? And I freaked out. I burst into tears, and I was just like, are you serious? And he was like, yeah, we think you're ready. You've been training well. And, obviously, the injuries that a couple of the girls have sustained, which have left a few spots open. And we'd love to take you along on tour. And that's where it all kicked off for me, because the Sevens World Cup was in the back end of that year. So I then played in Hong Kong and China, came back home, and then had a couple of months, and then went back over to play in London and Amsterdam, and in preparation for the Sevens World Cup. And then leading into the Sevens World Cup, being 17, I never really appreciated it like I do now, being so young and seeing how incredible these young athletes are at this age, especially on the Sevens World Series. The young 17, 18-year-olds that come through, we love to pump up their tires because it's just incredible, that kind of ability to be able to match these fully grown women. I think it's pretty amazing. So I didn't really appreciate it back then, because I guess my head was always in the zone. I was like, these women, my opposition, don't treat me like a 17-year-old. They are not going to take it easy on me. They're just going to absolutely want to flatten me, because there's a little bit more attention around who I am and what age I am. I kind of had to have my head screwed on. But looking back now, I really appreciate it. And I was super lucky to be able to live that kind of life at such a young age.
Well, that's the thing. Some countries don't give their younger players the opportunity to go early at the international level. And again, clearly that's a mistake, because you're still so young and you have the rest of your athletic career to offer that. One quick side story. I actually was at that World Cup. I was there with the USA as a media manager for the men and women's side. So now it's so funny going back, because when I first met you, you're like, oh, I've retired from rugby. I'm like, how old are you? Like 22? And you're like, yes. I go, when did you start playing? Now I know the backstory, so it all makes sense. I believe you scored 5 or 6 tries that tournament as well?
Yeah, well, that was the tournament, unfortunately, where I sustained my first major injury. So I ruptured my ACL in the quarterfinals against Spain, and we ended up losing that a quarterfinal, and then being knocked out of contention for the World Cup. So I think I was equal top try scorer with Portia Woodman on day one, and then the first game, day 2, is when I was kind of the end of my year. So it was good fun.
The next year, fast forward, you co-captained Australia the Summer Youth Olympics in China the following year. What was your mental state like, this being your first competition back after your knee injury in 2013?
Yeah, you guys have definitely done your research on me, hey. Very well informed. It was my first tournament back in Nanjing, and to be honest, I was really excited to get out of the blocks and be back playing again, just playing full matches again. It was scary though for me, going back into such an important tournament, that being my comeback tournament. So I obviously didn't want to fail. I didn't want to be too unfit. Confidence wise with my knee, I was in a really good place, because I had a few hiccups along the way that turned out to be blessings in disguise, which extended my rehab period. So instead of coming back around the 9-10 month mark, I was then pushed to the 13-month mark. So I was definitely well fine-tuned to be back playing full contact then. But yeah, mentally I felt a little bit of pressure on my shoulders, being co-captain as well for that team. And to come away with the gold medal was incredible, and it was just a taste of what was potentially to come in 2016. That was obviously where everyone's eyes were leading into Rio Olympics. But yeah, for me personally, it was a bit scary coming back at that tournament. But yeah, afterwards, obviously reaped plenty of benefits.
What kind of confidence did you bring into that tournament, having already played at the senior women's level?
Yeah, for me, I definitely had that advantage. It was almost like dropping back down a level to play against young women my own age. So I definitely took that experience and that confidence with me under my belt. I think that's what gave me a lot of confidence and helped me really just channel all of the energy rather than putting too much pressure on myself. Having that exposure at the higher level with the open women definitely gave me, just an edge among the players that were my age. So yeah, I was definitely in a fortunate position to be able to take that into the tournament.
That's crazy, being able to play in a senior women's World Cup and then come back down to playing against ladies your own age. You're just operating at a million times faster. So you've clearly overcome a lot of things as a youngster. What life lessons have you learned from your parents, growing up, that set you up for success at a young age?
Yeah, I think I've definitely got my mum to thank for most of that. I lost my dad at the age 12, so she was put in a pretty tough position to have to raise myself and my 3 younger siblings on her own from that point. And I guess the 2 biggest things that come out of lessons that my parents have taught me, for me, was resilience and gratitude. I'm really big on gratitude and always putting things into perspective in life, especially living in such a fast-paced world that we live in now. Can get caught up in the rat race of life. But then I think it's really important to be able to ground yourself and just to remind yourself of, that we're here and we're still breathing, that we still live great lives, and the opportunities that come day in, day out, whether they be big or small. It's really important to just appreciate that. That's personally for me. And I know that I get those values from my mom, and resilience is definitely a big one as well. From losing my dad at 12, a big trauma like that, into taking, the ebbs and flows that come with playing professional sport as well. There's highs and lows, and it's like a roller coaster, as you both would know, and especially having to come back from some big injuries at young ages as well. I had to endure that. So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot of resilience over time.
And T, I didn't want to bring too much conversation around that, but you did show me the tattoo you have and a very special story behind that. Would you mind sharing that with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a Tongan thigh band, so a tribal band around my right thigh, and that's a tribute for my dad. Not many people know unless they actually ask about the story. They think it's just a really nice piece of artwork, but it's got a beautiful story behind it. So my father was Tongan, and my mom's Australian, so I'm half Tongan, and he had a beautiful Tongan sleeve that went 3/4 down his arm. And the day before the last day that I actually saw him, he went off to, one of his friends was the tattoo artist, so he went off to get his tattoo finished, which was going to take about eight hours that day, and he had the stencil and all of the outline drawn, and he went to get it all shaded and coloured in, and we never got to see the finished piece because he passed away the following day. So before he got home. And as a tribute for him, my mum then went and saw the same tattoo artist and said, I want to have part of what you created on his arm. I want to have that on my thigh so I can carry him with me forever, everywhere I go for the rest of my life. And to me, I was only 12, but to me that was so special to have part of my dad and his artwork on my mum. And I always said from a young age, I can't wait until I come of age and I get in contact with the guy and I can get my own little piece. So he freehand drew my father's artwork, and he then freehand drew my mum's. And then when I eventually got into contact with him, it all happened. The way it transpired was really crazy. He only works in Australia for a few weeks of the year. He's based in New Zealand, but he goes to New Zealand and goes through the islands, goes to America, comes to Australia. And it happened to be the perfect timing that I'd gotten in contact with him. He said, I'm actually in Sydney for a few weeks, so book in before I start to book out. Then yeah, ended up getting it all done, and just showed him the photos of what he did with my father's and my mum's, and then he created my own piece and just mixed them, and then created my own little piece. And then my sister a few years later got the same one. So my mum, my sister, and I now have they're not identical. They're very similar, but that's all a piece of Dad's artwork that that we've got, and we can carry that forever, which is pretty
I find
special.
that, yeah, exactly. I find that so special, and and so amazing that you have that. Your mom has it, and you also track down the same artist as well. I did when I did some more reading about you and that story, and you managed to locate him, and he remembered who you were. He's like, "How's your family doing?"
Yeah.
And that's really great. So speaking of your
Yeah.
family, I know you're very close with your siblings. Tell us a bit about them, and I see them doing a lot of sports with you on social media.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm the oldest of four. I have, there's obviously me, and then my sister under me, her name's Natasha. Everyone calls her Tash. She used to be a little superstar, like sports wise, but she's more of an academic these days. She used to play, she played for Sydney in basketball. And then she played a bit of rugby league and a bit of rugby sevens, but she decided to pursue her university studies, and she's currently studying a dual degree in criminology and law. She's the brains of the family. And then there's my younger brother, who's the only boy. His name's Talanoa, and how old is he now? He's 15. So he plays rugby union and rugby league, but I think he's looking to pursue rugby league at the moment. So he currently plays in the junior reps for the Cronulla Sharks, so they're NRL affiliated team. And then there's the baby of the family. So her name's Renee, and she's named after my mum. And she's 13, and she's definitely the boss of the family. She's the little princess. So she's super athletic as well. So she loves track and field like I did, and she also plays soccer, which is great. Yeah, so we're a very sporty family.
You are, and that's the thing. You do a crossover between rugby union and rugby league, which is pretty amazing to see. So staying with league and the topic of family, tell us, how did you meet your fiance, Aaron?
Yeah, so Aaron and I have been together for going on 7 years now. So I was like fresh out of high school when I met him. But it's funny, going back to when we really first met, we were both little nippers. So nippers in Australia is surf lifesaving, and it's a really common sport along the coastline of Australia. And that's where we first met. So he was a couple of ages above me. I think I was maybe like 9 or 10 years old, and he would have been 12. And his younger brother and sister are twins, so boy-girl twins, and they were my age. So our parents knew each other, and we had definitely crossed paths, but we didn't really pay too much attention to each other until later on in high school. Past high school, when we actually crossed paths again, just different social groups. And then, the rest is kind of history.
Love it.
We're engaged now, and yeah.
Does he play rugby?
Yeah, he does. He plays rugby league. He played in the NRL for quite a few years, but at the moment there's obviously not much doing. He's off contract this year, so he's not playing at the moment. I think he's just enjoying some downtime. As you know, it's a crazy life being a professional footballer. I think he's just really enjoying the downtime, and we'll see what move he wants to make next.
And who's faster between the two of you?
I think at the moment,
set up a race.
Yeah, because he's still coming back from injury, so I'll definitely take the title while he's not at 100%. So yeah, I'll claim that.
Let's go back to your sevens journey. There was many ups and downs. Would you mind going back to the Rio Olympic Games cycle and tell us all about your experience with it?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously there was the main reason why I wanted to pursue sevens was obviously like with that 2016. Sorry, that's my puppy dog.
I thought that was your fiance just running at us. He's much faster.
Yeah, sorry. Loki.
He's so cute. I've seen him on a lot of your videos, just precious.
Yeah. He's a gentle giant. But yeah, going back to my 2016 Rio experience, there was a lot happening leading into that, and obviously a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard training that went into that goal. And for me, it wasn't the best experience. But I still feel really lucky to be a part of, the squad that won gold at Rio. But yeah, leading into that, I suffered 2 ACL ruptures, which had a few complications along the way. So leading into Rio selection, I had a little bit of floating cartilage that was moving around my knee, and getting in the way of me being able to walk and run properly. So this really became a problem about 6 weeks out before the team was scheduled to leave for Rio. And at that time, so 6 weeks out, I was okay. I could run, but I just kept getting caught and was catching, and some days were worse than others. So speaking to medical staff, speaking to my surgeon who had operated on me previously with my other injuries, he said, look, you don't really have enough time in the window that we've got to work with. The recovery is about 8 weeks if I go in and clean it out, and you'll be really pressing time. You don't want to be unfit going into Rio. So I was actually selected as the first reserve. So the 12 players scheduled to leave plus 2 reserves. So I was the first shadow. And then anyway, so preparing the last 6 weeks before the team was scheduled to leave, my injury progressively got worse and worse. And then by the end of that 6 week mark, I couldn't even walk properly. So running was out the window for me, and it was just heartbreaking. So it came time to see my doctor again, who straight away saw me walk into the office, and I knew what the answer was going to be. And he said to me, you know what I'm about to say, look, there's nothing we can do. I'm so sorry, but you won't be on the plane to Rio. And that was really a really hard pill to swallow for me at the time, because I guess the athletes can get caught up in placing so much emphasis and placing so much of your value on a significant achievement, and not being able to fulfill that achievement can then have some really negative effects mentally. And I felt like I went through that. And it wasn't until I came out the other side quite some time later that I actually put things into perspective. And yes, winning an Olympic gold medal is an incredible feat to accomplish in the sporting world. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make me who I am. And I think that was a really important lesson that I took out of not being able to participate in the Olympics, and then obviously not being able to win a gold medal alongside my teammates. So it was pretty heartbreaking, but some big life lessons learned out of that. And obviously I was, part of that winning squad. So I know that all of the blood, sweat and tears that went into winning that, the 12 they definitely commended, the whole squad, and it was a big team effort.
Yeah, it certainly was, and that's the thing. You see the 12 players on the podium, but you don't realize the greater squad and everybody else, and even the staff members as well that worked there. How much of a break did you take then? Because when I met you, we were commentating on the Sevens World Series, and then in recent years, you've picked up the rugby ball again to brilliant effect in rugby league. So how much time did you take off to adjust, and kind of what was that time period like for you? Because then you kind of came back inspired, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So immediately after the Olympics, I stayed with the squad. I wasn't really ready to leave yet. I was still looking towards the next World Cup and the next Olympics, but obviously that was a long way away in the future. So I just wanted to see if I could tick some little goals off first and still have my love for the sport and want to be there like I once did. So the next 12 months I stayed in the squad, and I played another full season with the squad. And then it wasn't until the off season the following year I came back, had a big think about what I wanted, and really had to reassess everything, and came to the conclusion that I wasn't really happy with where I was, and I felt like I needed a big mental break. So then I decided to ask for a release from my contract. I had 6 months left on my contract. And then, I had a meeting with my head coach and then asked for a release, which they were great about it. Then had 18 months away from playing footy altogether. I played a little bit of social Oz tag or tag rugby at home, and that was really fun just to be able to get the social element of playing some non-competitive footy back in. And that was good. And then 18 months later, I ran into a few old friends that I once played touch football in high school with. And they ended up convincing me to come down and play for the Cronulla Sharks women's team. So that's where my rugby league career began, and that was just at the back of 2018. And I had a pretty successful year last year, and I'm really happy with where I am at the moment with rugby league. I reignited the fire within, and I'm back playing competitive football again.
One quick comment. I love how, a lot of times when people play on international stage, they take a little bit of time off and then they get into something else, right? But generally that age is like between 30 and 40 years old. So for you, folks find you and they're like, hold on, they're 23 last year, and they're like, cool, let's get you back in. You'll be fitter and faster than any of our other players anyway, So
yeah, exactly right. And I guess I've been a bit premature in terms of my timeline in life. Matured at a really young age, and then retired at 22, and then back on the park at 23, 24. So it's been great. I've got plenty of time.
You're ahead of the game. Dallen and I didn't even get capped until I was 26, and I think he was 42 or something like that.
That's about right.
Under the bus. So that's a difference. She was a proper athlete. We weren't. But how long did you play league before you cracked the Australian women's team?
So last season was my first season. I played one season when I was about 10 years old. And then in Australia, there's a rule where I'm not sure what it's like internationally, but there's a rule where the girls can't continue to play alongside the boys once you hit 12 years old. So, I had to give league up from a really young age and didn't really think too much of it. But last year, in my first season, I climbed the ranks pretty quickly. So I'm very fortunate to have been given all of the opportunities that I had. I did not think at all in my first year that I'd be able to pull on a green and gold jersey again. That was definitely something that I was more striving towards this year or next year. Things moved pretty quickly again for me. Last year I went from playing for the Cronulla Sharks, which is club level, to then having an opportunity to play in the women's NRL, which is really special, and play State of Origin, and then be able to make my first cap as a Jillaroo for Australia.
That's amazing. Well, they must have been happy when they found out you were playing league. What are some of your early favorite moments in league since you returned to that game?
That's a good question. Probably the whole of 2019. There were so many highlights from being able to just be back playing and really loving footy again. I felt really grateful to just have that fire lit within again. I lost that love for footy a while back, and I didn't know whether I'd be able to find the love for professional sport again. And I just felt really happy that I found it. And then, coming off the back of being happy doing what I really wanted to do, I got to play some pretty incredible games, State of Origin, which is huge here in New South Wales. Got to be part of that in the women's State of Origin, and then being able to pull on a Dragons jersey in the women's NRL. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as a women's NRL. It was just men's NRL, and I grew up a rugby league fan as well, and getting to idolize, the male players, and getting to watch our favorite teams in the men's play, and then growing up and being able to actually play in the women's NRL was pretty surreal. I had to pinch myself a few times just knowing that I was a part of that. And then, playing at the World Cup nines was good fun. Having my sevens background, I was, licking my lips at that opportunity. I was like, this is awesome. This is what I'm used to. And then, playing the test match at the end of the year was really special. Being able to just, feeling the emotion of pulling the green and gold jersey back on. For me was very sentimental.
And from a coaching point of view, what were the major differences from league and union with all your experience now?
I guess the obvious one's running back 10 meters. You don't have to run back at the ruck in rugby union. So it took a little bit of adjusting, having to run back and to remember to run back every tackle. But I think once I actually learned, I'm obviously still learning, but actually learning the way rugby league is played, and just tactics and the little finite details. I think it made me appreciate both codes so much more, because people just assume because they look similar, you've got to pass the ball backwards and you make tackles, and all of the fundamental aspects of the game are quite similar. People just assume that they're really similar sports, but actually playing both at the levels that I've played has really given me an appreciation for rugby union and rugby league and how different they are and how unique they are as games. So just the little adjustments that I made. Like I said, the fundamentals are all the same, so I was lucky to be able to transfer that into my rugby league game. Just being a student of the game again was something that I'm still really excited about, and I'm always learning.
Yeah, that you mentioned that State of Origin clash. That's such a big one. Me as a rugby union follower, we don't really watch league much, right? And so like seeing that Origin clash and that you involved in your one as well, that must have been epic. And kind of, I suppose, as a youngster growing up, you've always watched league. Your father played and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool that you've gone back and now playing there. So now a question for you, right? We've got a ton of young boys and girls listening. Can you impart any advice or knowledge for them as they explore life and their sporting journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, I've been asked a few times about what I would say to my younger self. So I'd probably go along the same lines of that. And it would be more to just continue to do what really makes you happy. Happiness is a really important thing. And don't put so much pressure on yourself to achieve things. If you put in the hard work, and you can happily say that you've done everything that you can, be satisfied with that. Even if you do fall a little bit short, don't place all of that weight on your shoulders. But yeah, the most important thing is to just follow your dreams. Nothing's impossible. You can achieve absolutely anything you want, because if you're not out there trying to achieve it, someone else is. And we're all given, the same tools to achieve things in life. It's just a matter of who wants it more and who's willing to do the hard work. But yeah. Happiness, just stay happy.
Absolutely. I'd subscribe to that as well, because a lot of times, so us three in this call and the others we speak to, of course, we're fortunate in life because we get to do what we love, and get paid to do that. And again, if we didn't get paid, we would still do it, and so that's kind of really a key and unique thing, I would say. So let's switch across to another passion that we share. When did you, or what was your first opportunity to get into broadcasting?
Yeah. So broadcasting was not really something that I thought I wanted to get into. And I was kind of pushed in the deep end after, leaving my professional playing career. So after I retired, obviously I'd done a few little bits and pieces with Fox Sports here in Australia, and just developed some really good relationships with a couple of the media personalities, such as Sean Maloney, our good friend. And Sean was a really big influence in my life in terms of just taking me under his wing and, teaching me the tricks to the trade, and really helping me get the talent that I didn't know was there out. So my first ever tournament that I commentated on the World Series was the Sydney Sevens in 2018, I think it was. Yes, because I played in 2017. So 2018, they asked me to be part of the commentary team. And to be brutally honest with you, I was dreading it. I was so terrified. And I was like, I have no idea how you guys do this. It's so hard. It's difficult. Just being off the cuff and just thinking so quickly, and just being able to articulate your words and articulate what you're seeing on the field. I think people massively underestimate what commentators do. So I was really super scared, and I had a few little practice calls with Shawnee in the Fox Sports booth. But yeah, once I'd actually gotten that tournament out of the way, I was really proud of myself with being able to, get through a full tournament. Super exhausting. I had a massive headache after that weekend. But yeah, no, that was my first real taste of it. And then I've been on quite a few tournaments since, calling alongside you, Dallen, and that's always good fun. But I just feel super lucky.
I will say this, right? So you're always so prepared, and you got your highlighters out, your stats, your things like that. It's so funny working. So for those listeners who are listening, in the commentary booth, there are two different distinct roles. One is a person who calls the action as it's live, the play-by-play commentator, and then there's the color analyst, who generally is a former international star. So Tiana's the former international star who's alongside me. I'll call the action live. T comes in with expert analysis. And what I will say, it's kind of funny with other commentators I've seen, they just have the team sheet in the background and nothing else. And I'm like, what are they going to say? With you, I can see your stats up there. You've got everything. So it's like, I can give you as much time as we need, because you're going to go through and deliver some brilliant stuff, So always a pleasure. And I think my first final actually ever on the Sevens World Series was New Zealand, Australia. And that was with you in Cape Town. What a wonderful experience that was.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Just off the back of that was probably one of my favorite games that I've ever called. Being in Cape Town, I've never been in Cape Town before. You had pumped it up to me and told me how incredible the atmosphere was, obviously that being your hometown. And you know what? It just didn't disappoint. It was definitely one of my favorite tournament that I've been a part of. I can only imagine how it would have been for the players playing in that crowd. So yeah, that was my favorite game to call. Just the way the stadium erupts. It's something different over in Cape Town. It's
epic,
super crazy.
Epic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tiana, one reason why I like to coach women is they're way more organized. So, to hear about Sean Maloney, KT, Fickerman, and Dallen, and the one person organized was the lady in the booth, then I'm not surprised.
Thanks, Robin.
So just to date, for our fans out there, what's your favorite World Series event that you've had the opportunity to broadcast? You kind of answered it with Cape Town, but what about for you touring wise?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I get asked that quite a lot when speaking about my Sevens career. My favorite stadium to have played in was probably Twickenham when we won London Sevens way back in 2015, I think it was. Just being in such an incredible stadium that's got such a huge capacity. And obviously it was jam-packed for the men, and us getting to play our final in there as well with that crowd was wicked. Yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me. But I think the World Series is quite special. Like, you get to go to some incredible cities. Dubai is always good fun. You know, the pop-up stadium in the middle of the desert. I still don't understand how they do it. It's crazy. But yeah, the Seven Stadium in Dubai, London, Twickenham, Sydney. Sydney was a great one as well. Being able to play in front of a home crowd. It's really hard being on an international circuit. You rarely ever get the opportunity to play in front of family and friends. So Sydney was pretty special. But yeah, they'd be my top three.
I do have a question, right? So because you're playing a lot of league now, what do you think it's going to be like staying abreast with, the union game when you're commentating that?
Actually, I have been caught out once. I think in the terminologies sometimes get a little bit confusing. So I remember one game that I recently commentated where, just in reference to playing the ball, in rugby league it's called a play the ball, and in rugby union it's called recycling or presenting the ball. And I was commentating a sevens game, and I said play the ball accidentally. I quickly slipped up, and I realized straight away, and I was like, oh my gosh, wrong code. And I just made sure that I did not say that again. But I haven't really been stuck. It's, if anything, helped me see the game from a different perspective. Just little things that I would notice in rugby league, I can then see in rugby union as well that I probably once wouldn't have. So yeah, it's good. I've got a really broad way of seeing the game, I guess, being part of the two codes.
And you also now broadcasting open up yourself to commentating another whole sport. You know what I mean? So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So you can do both codes now. Okay.
Yeah.
My last two questions are tough ones for you. It's going to be your most admired or toughest competitor. So person, individual that you've played against in sevens, and then the same question for league.
Okay, that is a really good question. Sevens. You know what? The toughest competitor that I can remember, I think would probably be Alev Kelter. She's still incredible. Like, I love watching her play, love commentating her games. But yeah, from memory, she was always someone that I dreaded if she run at me, because she's just so hard to get to ground. She's such a powerhouse, and she's only gotten better over the years. So yeah, she's a pretty incredible athlete. She's got a huge motor as well. So she just doesn't stop, and you're just like, how are you so strong and so quick and so agile, but you just have this huge motor and you just keep going. So she's definitely someone that I really respected in the game, and probably the toughest competitor I came up against in sevens. Rugby league, that's tricky. That's a tricky one to think about. I can't really pinpoint someone that I've come up against that's too tough, but someone that I've played alongside is probably, her name's Maima Taufa. She's actually got a rugby union background as well, and she plays in the middle, and yeah, she's a tough woman. She's an incredible middle and does her job really well. But yeah, she's definitely someone that I'm happy to have on my team.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Tiana, you're such an inspiration to so many women across Australia and now across the world with all you've overcame at such a young age. And what would you like to accomplish on the sporting field in your next 5 years?
Oh, thank you, Robin. I appreciate that. Over the next 5 years, let's hope that my body gets me through the next 5 years on the sporting field. So I think I'll just take it 1 year at a time. But next year, for rugby league, the World Cup is on in England. So fingers crossed I'm fit and healthy, and in good form to be able to make the Australian team to play in a World Cup. I think that would be the dream come true. It's incredible to be able to represent your country at any time. So to be able to play in a World Cup and bring home the World Cup would be amazing. So that's what I've got my eyes set on at the moment. But yeah, just to keep playing as part of the women's NRL for as long as I can, and just soaking up that professional athlete life, because will come to an end one day. And yeah, I'll be looking back on all the memories that I've made. But yeah, to be able to keep playing for as long as I can, and to also be on the World Series for as long as I can as a commentator. It's a pretty special job to have. So I'll just keep soaking all of that up too.
The best of both worlds. Somebody's got to look after Dallen when he's on the road.
100%.
And just looking further down the road, and I got my coaching hat on, but just with the experiences you've had and you've overcome, and obviously the different perspective, like we had former Australian men's sevens coach Andy Friend, we've had Clark Laidlaw, we had a number of coaches on here, And one thing we've discussed is looking at other sports and other codes. So you've actually played professionally, all codes. So do you see yourself down the road using all that experience to becoming a coach? Is that something you'd be passionate about down the road?
Yeah, hopefully down the road one day, hopefully. But it's definitely something that I've thought about. Look, as I said, I'm still very much a student of the rugby league game, and even rugby union. I think that you guys would know, there's always something new that you can learn, and there's always ways to improve. I think that's just, as athletes, that's embedded in our minds, is constant, striving to achieve more and want more. But yeah, definitely, I think if I can learn as much as I can and soak all of that in, and have that unique mix of knowing both codes and be able to bind that together, then definitely it's something that I have thought about. And if that's the path that I choose to take down later on in life, then yeah, I hope I'll be good in that.
So are you cutting off your job at TikTok? Is that done then? The social media?
I don't think I have any hope with TikTok, to be honest. I'll leave that to my younger siblings. They kill TikTok. I'm just a battler who tries to copy them. But yeah, TikTok is out of my league.
Well, a quick side story for Robin here. So Robin, we're on the World Series, and you got some downtime between games. And I turn around during like one of the sessions. I'm just making some notes for the next game, and there's Carlton, Anna, and Tiana doing some sort of dance, and they're syncing it in, and it actually looks pretty good. But again, I don't know what's going on. So I come over to them, and they're like, "Oh, we're on this thing called TikTok." Meanwhile, KT's like deep in his 40s. He has no idea what's going on. But obviously, it's T. There's influence. It obviously goes viral. So that's why I'm saying she's a social media sensation. Now she's blaming her sisters, but I know it's her.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm level 1. They're like level 25. Me and KT, we're the battlers. We're at beginner level. But yeah, we'll keep practicing. We've got plenty of downtime during games most of the time. So look, Dallen, you got to be in one of them eventually.
I will eventually. Well, T, listen, I really want to thank you so much for your time. I know you've got a lot going on that side, and when things open up, you'll be very busy. So really good to have you on the show. And if all goes well, of course, we hope to commentate together one of the next few tournaments coming up, but who knows when that'll happen. At least we got to see your smiling face right now.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Stay safe and well. See you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
Bye.
Beautiful ball over the top. Yes, Seppo!
Thank you for listening, you sleek sensations.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to Rugby Hive Podcast and catch us on all the socials at Rugby Hive.
We appreciate your support. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
They've taken the lunch money from Sunday.